Hello and welcome to another episode of Blue Alpine TV. In today's episode, we'll talk about Bitmain potentially planning an IPO. We'll talk about some news from Coinbase and the SEC and what it means for the crypto markets. And we'll talk about an interview that you should watch today. But let's jump into this first news story. We are talking about Bitmain. Bitmain is essentially the company that controls Bitcoin mining, if you will. They are producing miners and supplying or actually ruling around 75 to 80% of the Bitcoin mining market, not only through hardware equipment, such as I think there's called the ant miners and all of these things. They're also controlling two of the biggest mining pools. One is called BTC.com and the other is called Ant Pool. So they're essentially controlling a lot of the mining power on Bitcoin. Now, today, there came out, there was a kind of an interview, a report from Jihan Wu. Jihan Wu is one of the co-founders of Bitmain, and he said that Bitmain actually made 2.5 billion in revenue last year, and he and his co-founder Mike John are actually owning 60% of the business, essentially making them obviously billionaires. The company's valuation currently is around 8 to 10 billion US dollars. Some say more, some say less. And the whole discussion or article is kind of discussing whether or not Bitmain could actually plan an IPO. Now, Wu is saying that it's quite possible that they will open a listing in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, essentially to give early investors such as Sequoia Capital, which is a huge venture capital company in Silicon Valley, and IDG Capital, kind of a chance to cash out those early investments that they have already did. Now, what is really interesting is that Wu is probably in the position that he thinks Bitmain will become even bigger than it is right now. I mean, an IPO, yes, would open it to the public, but essentially he's thinking he has something up his sleeve, I feel like, from this report. If we kind of discuss the whole position of Bitmain in the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency market is quite interesting, because they're essentially controlling entire Bitcoin mining space by, on one side, the hardware products, and on the other side, the mining pools such as Ant Pool and BTC.com. However, they actually want to dive more into artificial intelligence. And that is interestingly a field that is kind of backed by the Chinese authorities, whereas cryptocurrencies is always kind of a gray zone, an edge case, if you will. And it could very well be that Bitmain is trying to kind of focus or refocus on different areas. Could very well also be that they're just trying to kind of stay number one in the market. Now, what is interesting is that they are controlling essentially around 40% of the mining pools, or the pool power as well. For the podcast listeners, we're currently looking at the comparison of the different pool powers, and you can see BTC.com is owning around 26% and Ant Pool around 15% of the market. And the others are not even close to the numbers that BTC.com and Ant Pool are pulling. So it's kind of there has been a bit of backlash, if you will. The community is saying that companies like Bitmain are actually hurting Bitcoin, because you kind of centralizing the mining power, centralizing the miners. So there is kind of a problem, if you will, in that regard. But obviously for Bitmain, this is an amazing business. They are making a lot of money, and they are definitely trying to diversify and get into AI as well. Could be related to the Bitcoin price, could be related to the pressure from China, could be related to a bunch of things. Nonetheless, I think Bitmain is one of the most interesting companies to watch out for. If they are being stock listed, this is also something you could think about, to buy stocks directly from Bitmain, essentially because it will help you to kind of ride the wave, or the success wave, that Bitmain could potentially ride as well. So quite interesting. I was actually close to the Bitmain office in Zurich while going to that meetup just the day before yesterday. So that was interesting to see that they also have an office here in Switzerland as well. Now, next up, we have quite an interesting news story. And it is a news story that came out yesterday. And essentially, Coinbase will try to get crypto securities SEC regulated. Now, how are they doing this? They're saying, today we're announcing that Coinbase is on track to operate a regulated broker-dealer, which it wasn't until now, pending approval by federal authorities. If approved, Coinbase will soon be capable of offering blockchain-based securities under the oversight of the SEC and the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, the FINRA. This is quite interesting because this, first of all, hasn't been done before, and second of all, essentially means that Coinbase will then have the power to tokenize existing types of securities. Now, every time we're talking about cryptos and tokens and blockchain and all of these things, there's a lot of talk about trying to tokenize securities or tokenize all the things that can be traded in essentially the stock markets. As you know, stock markets are limited. They are most of the time, let's say, from 9 to 5 or 9 to 4, depending on where you are in the world. And the crypto markets are different. Crypto markets are 24/7. It's real time and all of these things. So this is essentially a really, really interesting way from Coinbase to kind of approach this. Now, they are doing this by their acquisition of 3 companies, essentially: Keystone Capital Corporation, Venovate Marketplace Incorporated, and Digital Wealth LLC. And interestingly, I think Keystone Capital has kind of these licenses that they will be able to use or kind of integrate into their existing platform. So Coinbase, again, is in a very, very interesting kind of position to position itself to kind of really shake up stock markets, really shake up derivatives markets, generally securities markets, and also kind of get a stronger crypto position as well, because this could essentially mean that they will be able to kind of list altcoins as well on Coinbase and do that all under SEC oversight and under SEC control, which is a huge deal, and a lot of people are waiting for that step. Now, that actually brings me to the next kind of interesting observation here. Thomas Lee is, I think, the partner at Fundstrat. Fundstrat is a research company which I think is doing great work, and here he's saying, I think we may be turning corner positive on US regulatory overhang. Why? I don't believe Coinbase would announce Keystone and Circle Pay would seek a bank unless they saw sufficient clarity to run towards regulation, and that is hence positive for Bitcoin. Now, he's also kind of shown this graphic, and for the podcast listeners, we're kind of seeing that different cryptocurrency exchanges are moving towards well, you have those exchanges, then you have Coinbase and Circle in the middle. They are moving towards regulation, and some of their acquisitions already have worked with the SEC. So this is quite interesting coming from Fundstrat, although they have said that they are seeing the price of Bitcoin currently at, I think, end of the year around 25K or 30K. Nonetheless, quite interesting kind of a move. If you are kind of on the sidelines thinking about investing, as you know, we believe in long-term investing. We believe in diversified investing. Nonetheless, if this regulation plays out, could very well be kind of next of kind of a market boom, if you will. Like the numbers could very well go up if this whole regulatory panic, regulatory scare, fear could actually clear up. So this is kind of a tidbit I wanted to give you. Next up, we have quite an interesting interview. It's actually around 43 minutes long, and it has been done by Bloomberg Invest in New York, and the guest has been Mike Novogratz. As you know, Mike Novogratz has kind of created a crypto bank and is kind of building different products, has also created kind of an index as well. So quite early in the crypto space. He's ex hedge fund manager, as far as I know. So definitely interesting interview to watch. I can definitely recommend it. I will link it up for you so you can give it a full go. So all links, as always, will be linked up in the video description and the podcast description. And yeah, with that, guys, we're already at the end of today's episode. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the podcast. I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.